Hey guys, I'm here in my green screen studio back here, as you can clearly see, for no real reason except for the fact the camera's set up and I needed to ask you guys about something. And it's kind of a strange request and I don't expect much of a response, but I'm looking for a video editor and I'll try to explain why. When I go through a review, I'm involved in pretty much every step of the process. I control, I do everything, so... I really consider it three steps. I do writing, filming, and editing. There's pre-production. I mean, there's various aspects where I got to buy props or various visual aids. But really, writing, shooting, and editing. And so, when I'm making videos, the reason it takes so long is because I have to do every single step. So, writing tends to it can take anywhere from a day to a week, depending on the complexity of the review. And if the writing doesn't seem like it's that complex, it is, because the writing process consists of me watching the movie or playing the game, which in itself is no small feat, especially in the case of a game like an RPG. When you're playing a game like Final Fantasy X or something like that, the entire game will run you about 40 hours. That's why most players don't like to do RPGs for Let's Plays, and Lord Cat doesn't like to do his version of RPGs because... they're very, very long. So that's part of the reason. When it comes to movies and games, you also have to, when you've collected your footage from those games, you have to make notes. You have to annotate them. Like when you have everything you want to make specific, you have to outline in your notes. So like if you want the laughing scene, you have to make it in your notes. You have to outline what time code the laughing scene is. And so there's a lot of annotation, a lot of preparation that I do just to be organized, to save myself time in later steps. So if I have these notes prepared when I'm in editing, I can look at these notes and find out exactly where in the footage this stuff is. So the reason I'm telling you that just is to explain how these various steps tie together. So once it's written, I do shooting. And so those first two steps are something that I really can't pass off to anybody else. So like if I were to have someone else write the reviews, it could work, but it wouldn't be me writing it, and I think you would probably notice. So if I would have to have somebody I really, really trusted to take over writing duties. So my main focus right now is trying to get reviews out quickly because I've got a lot of stuff. I have no shortage of ideas, but there's a bottleneck that comes in where I have to stop. Like when it's like a pipeline system or what do you call it? Where there's a workflow. So from beginning to end, I have to do everything. So, the real step that I figure I can cut out from my production schedule is editing. And don't get me wrong, I actually really like editing. It's a tedious process, but it's a lot of fun because that's where a lot of inspiration comes in. And I have all these toys that I love to use, like the Adobe Production Suite that I've been donated. I'm still learning that, and I'm still trying to master it as quickly as possible because it's very, very powerful, and it's astoundingly good. I still use Vegas a lot, which is... I'm trying to get off of Vegas, but I can use both. So the thing is, if I can find someone local that can edit footage and make it look like what I'm doing now, that would pretty much, cut off a third of all my production times on these videos. So what I'm really looking for right now is someone who is a talented editor, a video editor, preferably local to the Mesa, Phoenix, Tempe area in Arizona. And the main reason for that is, I'm not saying that, I'm not making any complaints about anyone who's willing to work. That's not the problem. I'm sure there's a lot of people around the world willing to do this for me. The main problem is I shoot in this camera, I shoot in HD footage. And any given review that I shoot ends up being anywhere around from like 8 to 20 gigabytes worth of video files. And my internet connection is not good enough to allow me to send those files quickly or easily to someone else. Were I to do that, it would probably take less time just for me to edit myself. So by the time I uploaded like 20 gigabytes of footage to you, it'd probably be 4 days later or something like that. It would be pretty insane. So the reason I say someone local is because I would prefer just to hand the SD card off to somebody, hand a DVD with all the various clips I have, and say, with the script, and say, make it so. I'm still working out the logistics of it. I'd like to say I had everything planned out, and I don't. I realize I'm coming off as very unprofessional because I have my own way of doing things. I have never worked with anybody else before. So I have, I probably have my own shorthand. I probably have my own way of organizing project files that would astonish and shock and just make other editors just downright fearful. I think I have a pretty organized system, but even so, I think a professional editor would be like, "What are you doing?" But yeah, I have this system. I have ways of annotating scripts. So what I'd like to do is just be able to hand off these files to somebody, give them the shooting script that I use, and say, you know what my videos look like online if you've seen them. Try to make it look like this. There's a few problems with this problem. A few problems with this solution that I'm putting forward to you. One, it requires somebody being local to Arizona, and I realize I don't have many fans in Arizona just because it's spread out. Two, I'd pretty much have to be able to find you and hand you stuff. So you'd probably have to be willing to make the trip down here to, I live in Mesa, probably twice a week, once for me to give you the files. I imagine my turnaround's going to be like one review a week. So I can write and shoot, give you the files. 3-4 days later, you can come back, deliver the files, and I need you to deliver, at the least, I need you to deliver the master files, the project files that you use, preferably in Adobe Premiere, but I would accept Vegas. I would need the masters, like everything you've done up to this point. And I would probably have you do it in a fashion consistent to the way I do it. Unless your way is vastly more efficient, which, believe me, is entirely possible, but I would need to find some common way where you could send me these files, I could look at them and understand them and easily be able to make changes if I had to. I would probably also need you to render a final copy in a format that is at least an MOV or MPEG-2s. Actually, most of my archive copies are MPEG-2s, which is bad. I should not use MPEG-2s just because it's an encoded format. It's not uncompressed. I just have so many files on my hard drive that they're quite large. In HD, when you're doing uncompressed HD files, they get massive. So the other problems are the fact that, here's the thing, it seems simple that I can just hand you this footage and say, like, okay, this is what I've shot. Like, for instance, Mazes and Monsters. If I handed you a copy of the DVD of Mazes and Monsters, I handed you a copy of the various sound files and music files that I had, various recurring gags that occur, and then I was like, okay, here's the HD footage. I go, make this. The problem is, you kind of have to have seen the movie to understand the bits that I want you to because like in my mind's eye, I see it. Like before I start editing, I see the review in my head, so it's easy for me to go through the project, go through the movie, and find what I need. To where, when I'm narrating, what you see on the screen makes sense. And I try whenever possible to have time codes of various aspects of the movie that are in there. But I can see how for an editor who does not have the same, vision in his head, has not seen the movie, doesn't fully understand the way I do, I can see why it would be very difficult to, like, what the hell is he thinking? Like, what clip is this? I don't know what he's talking about. Pardon me. Hang on. I got a dry throat. I was recording most of the day today. I can see that would be difficult. Even more so with the video games. Let's just take, for instance, Final Fantasy X. I have either played this game or I have seen every part of the footage, and I've made notes on most of it. The problem is, if I were to hand you a script and like basically 40 hours of footage that's been recorded, the footage I have is pretty much 40 hours, probably 30 to 40. And I were to hand this to you and I would say, make the footage match what I'm talking about, an editor is going to, the vein in his head is just going to go. So that's where I'm at right now. Is I'd like to find an editor who basically knows how I operate and is understanding what I'm talking about in terms of combing through a lot of footage, finding very specific moments from footage, and probably what I'm talking about is you probably have to sit through and watch either the movie, or you pretty much have to sit through and watch all the video game footage, or at least talk to me about the footage that I've provided. And it's not going to be easy, because I know it's not easy, because I do it. The other problem is, I don't know what an editor normally charges. And that's tricky because I'm not really a high-priced, not a high-funded organization right now. I can't afford to pay an editor, but right now what it comes down to is I'm probably going to go, like, in about 2 weeks or so, I'm probably going to look through all the offers that I've had. So, like, everyone who kind of submits their resumes or whatever, like, makes an offer on what they can do. I'm probably going to shoot a short review, probably about 5 to 10 minutes. Probably one of the Ultima series, actually. Probably the next Ultima, which I actually have shot. And I'm probably going to send all of you the same copy of the Ultima review and say, like, edit this together. Let me see what you can do with it. And I don't know how I'm going to judge the quality, but that will probably be the first step, is just seeing if you're capable of interpreting the footage in such a way that it looks like what I would do. And, you know, make it sensible, make it funny, to where there's not really any mistakes. You know what I mean? And from there, it's probably just going to be like a lowest bidder contract, where you kind of tell me what you think your services are worth. And I will probably also do some research on my end on what a video editor normally charges, on whether or not they're kind of charged by the project. They're probably charged by the hour, because they're probably salaried. In this case, I would probably prefer to charge by the project. You know, like every project I send you would be X amount of dollars. I think that would work for the best. But hopefully you understand a little more about the workflow that I go through, and you understand that, you know, there's a lot of footage to go through. Like, this whole thing, it's actually very flattering when people say, like, oh, why don't you turn reviews around faster? It looks really easy. So I think a lot of people have in their mind this idea where, like, I'm sitting in this chair. You know, I'm sitting in a chair, I'm talking about a movie, and the images come up, and the images that you see on screen just match what I'm talking about. It's almost like your voice just evokes these images, and that's what I'm going for, but it's not that easy. So you really have to step, like, every line that I say, like every single sentence, I have to have footage up on the screen that matches what I'm talking about. That's kind of the challenge of what I'm of the editing. Just putting together the segments is not difficult. It's combing through the footage that's tricky. So if anyone is interested in working like a dog, and meeting the requirements I've set, again, those requirements are probably going to be living in the Mesa, Phoenix, Tempe area in Arizona, willing to make a drive down to where I live, probably twice a week, to receive a hand-deliverable memory card, like an SD memory card, along with some project files. Working in either Vegas or preferably Adobe Premiere, preparing and delivering the project files and a rendered final copy of the review. And yeah, that's pretty much what I need. And anyone who's hearing the problems that I'm talking about, or at least the complexities in the editing reviews, and doesn't see that as much of a problem, drop me an email. My email's on the bottom of the site, should be anyway. Let me know what you think. I'd like to have a discussion on this and discuss the feasibility of any kind of partnership on this score. Really, and I'm not trying to. I know people are probably going to spin this the wrong way, like I want less to do with the site or something like that. I'm just trying to make it more efficient. I'm trying to make it to where I can focus on the creative process. I can focus on the production of the videos, and once they're done, I can just have somebody put it together. Because the putting together there is inspiration that takes place in the editing process, where I can I actually do come up with jokes and kind of one-liners in the editing process, and I will probably lose a little bit of that when I pass off editing duties. But a lot of people operate this way. You may not know this, but like when it comes to the 3 steps, that guy with the glasses, Doug actually has help writing. He has, I know his brother helps with the writing quite a lot. And so it helps that they actually have a very similar sense of humor, or at least they know how they know their writing style. Like Rob knows how Doug talks. Rob knows the kind of humor that Doug likes to engage in, and together they have a very, very, very capable, very efficient, very funny working partnership. To where actually his where he saves time is the writing process. That's how he has such a fast turnaround time. And that's all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a very regular schedule. I'm trying to get a faster schedule, and I'd like to make this as professional as possible. So I've been blabbing on about this a long time. So that's pretty much what I'm looking for. If you're interested, drop me a line, and we'll talk about this. I'm not doing this right away. There's no rush on this. In fact, it's probably going to be at least a month or two. I got PAX to go to. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say. Yeah, drop me a line and we'll talk about it. And I don't want to discuss money at this point. I just need to know if you guys have any solutions to the problems I'm talking about. So thanks for watching. I'm sure you guys will superimpose space battles behind me to make things really interesting, or like lions about to charge. Go ahead, I don't care. But I should actually make another video. So that's interesting. Yeah. Have fun, you guys. Drop me a line. Bye.